Hi there, Rick Ragosa here on another session of Mastering the Guitar. I hope you've been practicing, and for the most part I hope you're moving your fingers and getting yourself ready, because preparing yourself on a daily basis, doing finger exercises and making a fist and slowly stretching the fingers out, and making a fist and then just stretching each finger out by themselves. Okay? And in fact, I like to tuck the fingers in, hold one out, and then use the other hand and bend it back. Okay, just right back. Try to stretch it. Go slow. It's important that you're dealing with muscles, so you don't want to rip anything, but you just want to slowly release the tension. Okay? Forward and back. Separate them. Get your hand in between. And just a little bit of a separating. Okay? Warm up the knuckles. Okay? We've been dealing with some exercises. Spinning each of the fingers around in little circles, little semicircles, getting that dexterity, breaking them in sections, 2-4, 1-3, 2-4, whatever it is, okay? Doing different sets, 1-2, 2-3, 3 and 4, okay? And there's that little that you can do with your fingers. There's 1-2-3-4 or 1-3-2-4. Okay, you see those little patterns? They're kind of cool. So mess with that, all right? Get your fingers moving, because we're preparing ourselves to apply those motions to make sounds, okay? Now, the sounds that we want to make are, for the most part, you want to think of them as being pleasant. Noise should be a choice and not an obligation, okay? So the important thing to understand is that this instrument is tuned in accordance with a framework, or how would you say, basically a formula or a pattern, okay? The term is diatonic, and what that comes down to is understanding that it is an arrangement of whole and half steps, okay, which relate to the instrument as 2 frets and 1 fret, okay? A half step is 1 fret on the guitar, and a whole step is 2, okay? And the thing to understand about this is that what I'm introducing to you is the basis of how the guitar is tuned, and the understanding that accompanies that, and why the chords look certain ways, okay? They're not just some random placement. They're based on formula. And if we were to change the tuning of this instrument, the formula would still be the same, okay? For example, if we were to be playing a C chord, which is a major C chord, 1, 3, 5. The formula from the major scale is the first note, the third note, and the fifth note taken out, and combined produces a C major chord. Well, if we were to change the tuning on this guitar, all that would do to the C chord would be to change how I place my fingers, because the notes wouldn't be the same, so I'd have to find where those notes were, the new locations, and then come up with fingerings according to that. But the components for a major triad would always be the same. The way that I would play them perhaps would change depending on the tuning, but the basis for understanding the chords, major, minor, diminished, dominant, seventh, and augmented, the basic 5 families, they still stay the same, okay? So this instrument is middle C, and it's tuned to, basically we're dealing with concert C. Okay? And the question was proposed to me is, well, how do I know where the notes are? Okay? And I'm going to run through a quick tuning here. And that's a good point if we're dealing with throwing you out there in the middle of, maybe an audience even with a guitar, and say, okay, play a C or D, and having no prereq information, that could present some problems, all right? Even though you could just apply tension and release cycles to the various areas of the neck and make sounds, and you might luck out, and that might be the sounds the audience wants to hear, and they'll think you're great. Chances are, though, you just make a bunch of noise. And that's why it's important to get in line with some of the fundamental facts of not only the tuning of the instrument, but the arrangement of the notes that come from basically just having a vocabulary of sequence, okay? We start with a natural key, and commit to memory where a key note is to a certain key. Now we've looked at the key of C, and we've looked at the key of G, okay? Now everything in music is based in logic. If you start with a one note, well, two is going to be right after that. Now, experimenting would dictate eventually which one would work better in certain situations or how you're applying this, but there are names of the notes, and in relation to the keys, there's numbers to each one of the names, okay? So you're really at no point at any time left out in the open or left without any tools to work with, okay? The important thing to understand is that all things are derivative off of the major scale. So the first thing that we must do in this process of equipping us with the tools to play this instrument is learn the major scale, because from it we get our chords, and from it we get our melody patterns. And if we want to change certain things, we get our guideline from the major scale and then make the necessary changes to produce the tension sounds that we want. But that major scale at really at no point ever leaves the picture, because this instrument's tuned naturally to the major scale. It's tuned to C, excuse me, and if you have a grid book, or there are some complementary sheets that are available. In fact, I can put the plug in right now that if you are interested in having the paperwork that goes with this series, you can mail into Box 369, that's Squamish, and it's Community 10, and label it Mastering the Guitar. And we will send you back the paper work that's involved with this series, the scales and the chords and the chord drill. And also on the grid paper then, it equips you with the notes, okay? Now I'm going to explain something here just because it's important, and eventually it should be included in this series. The information at hand here as far as the tuning is this. And how it was explained to me, and it's worked all these years, so I just don't change a thing and just explain it as it is. There's in the key of C, there is a half step between B and C and E and F. And then all the other notes have 2 frets, okay? A whole step. So just knowing that information then, that rule, that there's a half step between B and C and E and F, and the rest have whole steps. Just those 2 points is all you need to know then on how to figure out a major scale, just if you're going to go on one string, okay? Now how that's accomplished, excuse me, is we have an open E, okay? So, now what is the rule? Between E and F and B and C. So the next note in this sequence is F. So then if our first string is open, then a half step is going to be the next first fret, okay? So E, F. According to the rule it works, and then according to just the way it is, there's our F note. Now in the alphabet, what comes after F? A G. Okay, well let's apply that principle. E and F and B and C. Now they don't apply, so it couldn't be another half step, it must be a whole step, which is 2 frets. Okay? So then we would have to go 2 frets, and that would be our G note. Okay? Now this is in the key of C. And this is what's so neat, is once you learn it in the key of C, it can be relative and the shapes are applicable to all the other keys. You do have to learn it in one key first. But the whole point of this is it's based, the theory and the application of this instrument is just based on these little key points that make it so easy. And it is decipherable. You have the aptitude to figure this out, okay, and to use that information to work for you. We got a G. Now we want to find out where the next note is in the musical alphabet, which repeats itself after G, which goes back to A, okay? So from there, excuse me, after a G, we go to A. Now, does that fit the rule? B, C, E, F, half step. No, so it has to have 2 frets. There again. So we add up 2 frets, and now we have an A note. So just having that basic formula, you can see that by equipping ourselves with little fundamental tools like that, it allows us to walk through this and use information that we have to discover the things that we're trying to find out. We're on an A. Now let's go to the next note. What comes after A in the alphabet? It's a B, okay, in case some of you were not sure. So the B, does that fit the formula? B and C and E and F have a half step, the rest? No, so it has to be a whole step again, all right? So here we've got a whole step. So we're on a B now. What's the next note in the alphabet? It's a C. So we go, okay, C. All right, does that fit in the pattern? B and C and E and F? Yes, it does. So that means to get to a C, we have a half note, okay? Now, C and D, E and F and B and C, it's not in the formula, so it has to be a whole step. D and E, B and C and E and F have a half step. No, D and E, no, it has to be a whole step. So 2 frets. And then E and F, does that fit the formula? B, C, E, and F, yes it does. So then we have a half step between the E and the F, okay? Now, in the key of C, there's the formula for knowing the whole step and half step arrangement, okay? In the major scale, though, the formula is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, okay? Now try to say that fast a few times. The point of that is, that formula is what they call the interval. You can use the word data or information, or that's the interval size, or the interval, it's actually referred to as intervallic design. It's the design of the intervals for the major scale, the formula, the shape, the pattern, all right? Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and a half step. So even if you do not know the names of the notes or have a clue what's going on at any stage of the game or any level, just by having that information, you would be able to play whatever major scale you wanted because you just follow that pattern, okay? I might not know the names of this note, but I do know the formula, okay? So there's a bit of a trade-off here, because this note, even though I don't know the name of it, becomes my starting note. We're going to call this the starting note. Now the pattern is whole step, half step. So whole step is 2 frets. So even though I don't know the names of these notes, that's the shape I'm playing. Okay? Now whole step, now I can play it here, or is another place to play it? Right there. Because I can play the scale as this pattern, I can figure it out on one string, okay? So I don't know the name of this note. Okay? Actually, I think it was on this one, okay? Because it's a tension note. So I don't know the name of this note, but I know the shape. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Now by following that pattern, we'll try it a different place, okay? I can't say I don't know where I'm starting from because I just know the instrument too well, but perhaps you don't know where I'm starting from. And that's the whole point, is it doesn't matter. When you have a formula for a pattern or a shape, that is really what is necessary in learning that. In the time that follows, you can spend the time to learn the names of the notes and all the intricate details in that key or how it's applied to the arrangement that you're playing or whatever turns you on about that. But you enter the situation starting off with the key or with the basic formulas for the shapes you're trying to derive, okay? Which again are very simple. Major, minor, they're really restricted to your choices. There's 5 different families, okay? So let's try that again and just work with this major scale formula, okay? Which is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So there is the major scale, and actually I started on an F sharp. There's the major scale in the key of F sharp, all right? And I know that for a fact because I started on the F sharp as a root note, and I followed a certain pattern. Now the pattern I just didn't come up with out of my imagination. It's the natural tuning of this instrument, okay? And this is the whole key to learning this instrument, is you start with some basic information and it grows. The sequence and the process of thinking involved with this series, especially in introducing you to the fundamentals of playing the instrument, is to start off with the basis of introduction, what a song is, and what our goals are is really to achieve, you know, playability. You want to be able to play the rhythm section, you want to be able to play the melody section, and equip ourselves with the understanding and the tools that we need to do this, okay? So from this point, this episode, we're looking at the key of D. I wanted to just check my notes to make sure that was correct. So in the key of D, all right, we're not just starting in D. D happened to be the 5th of G, which is the key we looked at last time, okay? So we're we've established some fundamental information, and then we're just small increments of data are being added to this that produce a large picture, okay? And it can get as large as you want. You can be a conductor of an orchestra if you wanted to. If you comply with the natural laws involved with that, that can be where you want to go and what you want to achieve. That is purely upon yourself. The tools are available to all of us, and it's for whoever wants to use them and applies them, okay? And that's the whole point of this series, is to, over the almost 20 years that I've been teaching, the situations that I've come into, there's just so much lack of knowledge in making things work and connecting that is really not necessary. By equipping you with certain facts, you just changes your whole viewpoint and takes the fear out of things, and it can be fun, okay? And on top of it all, it's productive. It's an aptitude developer, you're developing dexterity, it's all just on a positive, okay? Now, coming back to the explanation of the keys, there are certain formulas, and that's the point of this series, and any kind of approach is just to learn what's going on. With this particular approach, we start at a point where we want to just get to where we're going as quick as possible. And from there, you can apply that to wherever you want to go, okay? If you want to have a career in jazz music, well, then you can take the tools you need to apply it to jazz. Hardcore metal, whatever it turns you on, country. The sounds, there are certain notes that work in combination that produce country sounds, okay? Well, once you know your major scale and have some tools to work with, it's a matter of choice then, and not just, you know, you're stuck playing something because somebody showed you how to play a lick once, okay? So, to the key of D, right to this point, we can start on the D note, all right, which in reference to this tuning and in reference to the relationships of the strings, the D, there is quite a few Ds. There's at least, on any given place, there's probably 3 or 4 different places to play a note. The octave has about a 4-octave range from the E. Okay, so 2 or 3 different notes for sure. As far as octaves and range, okay, this D and how it's going to suit our needs, we're going to use the top 2 strings as our root note guides, starts on the 5th fret, 5th string. Okay, so we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and count up to the 5th fret, and that's our starting note, which is a D. Okay, so now we know that. That's established fact. There's our D. Now, we don't have to guess. We can go back to the key of G, which is here, G, C, D. And D happens to be the 5th of the key of G. Now, G is the 5th of C, and C was down here, 3rd fret, 5th string. And how we can verify that is we have an A. Now the formula, B and C, E and F, no, so it's a whole step, so it's a 2nd fret, it's a B, and now between that, B, C, and it does apply a half step higher, we have a C note, A, B, C, okay? So everything does relate and everything does follow a master pattern, okay? And what I'm doing and what I feel my purpose here is to reveal to you sequentially the data that's necessary to get you playing and what's important, and then you can fill in your preferences as time goes on, okay? Now, what I can consider important is what's the components of music. That's a rhythm section and a melody section. And it's important. Some of you have heard me over and over again and have taken lessons and blah, blah. Some of it's, you know, over and over again. Well, that's what we need. We need to have it reaffirmed so it's very clear in our thinking what we're doing. When I'm playing a rhythm section, I can't be thinking of the melody section or what the bass player is doing or what the drummer's doing. I'm playing the rhythm section, and that's one part of all the different parts that compile a song. So we need to be able to, in our mind, break those sections down and be open to, okay, well, that's what I'm going to be doing there. Combining all these sections, like in multi-recording, you lay all your single tracks down, you combine them, and there you have all the components of what a song is, okay? As complicated or as simple as you like. So we started in the key of C, which is a natural key. We went from C to G, C, D, E, F, G, okay? And G, now we're going to the key of D. Now the 1, 4, 5 in the key of D is what? You start with D and you go D, E, F, G, and A. 1, 4, 5 is D, E, F, G, and A. Okay, so let's find them. Well, we know where a D is, okay, because we just found that out. 1, 4, 5, okay. Now this is kind of interesting. Watch this and see if you can pick up on this. There's our 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. D. Now G, we need to know where G is. In keeping up with the shape that we've learned so far, a 4 chord is within the perimeters of the major scale. So let's play the major scale starting with D first, and then from there we'll see how the sequence follows or unfolds. Okay, and here's my whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, but this arrangement is played, it's position playing. It's all within the perimeters of 4 frets, the position that I'm in. Okay, depending on the key that you're in or whatever turns you on, you can play it single line, you can play half of it on one string, half of it on another, whatever turns you on. The important thing is, as I was trying to explain with the tuning reference, is that the formula for whatever it is would stay the same. You can change the tuning, the shapes might change, you might change how your chords look, but the formula is the same. Okay, and that's what we want to adhere to, is what the formula is, because then that's going to work for us however we apply it on whatever instrument. Not all instruments are tuned the same. Dulcimers, things like that have different reference for tuning, ukuleles or mandolins. So then the shapes change accordingly, but the fundamental theory behind it all is the same. And that's the important thing of what you can pick up from this series. What a triad is, and how a chord is built, and how it applies. And that information then you can work with, and that's what grows. And really, when you know how to play a D chord, and you know what a D is, okay, then you can add a 4th, okay, or play a 6th, all right, and be deliberate in your motion and not have it accidental, okay. So we're in the key of D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. D. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 4, 5. There's that shape again. 1, 4, 5. 4 is underneath the 1. 5's 2 frets higher than 4. But now, that takes us into a playing area that is intermediate to advanced, and we're not going to worry about that right now. So we're going to use, in keeping with what I'm trying to explain to you, the formula and principles of minimum movement, of using information that we already know and applying it to the areas that we're advancing to or discovering or exploring, okay? So we've got a D here. We're playing the 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. It's D, G, and A notes, 1, 4, 5. Well, D, now we need to know where a G is. Well, guess where G is? Well, all we have to do is think of the last episode, because the G was on the top string 3rd fret, okay? Now, we could follow the major scale formula, and that would take us there, okay? And that's the whole key to this, is that the shapes will work for us, and we can use them to find the notes that we need to know, and it just works, okay? It is the law of numbers, okay? So we've got 1, 4. Well, our 5 is 2 frets higher than 4. 1, 4, 5, okay? And D is at the first time when this is introduced. When we're in the key of G and the key of C up here, the 1, 4, 5 was 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. Now, that's a shape that should always be remembered, because no matter where you start, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, that shape will be the same, okay? Well, starting on the 5th string, the shape that we want to memorize here is 1, 4, 5. There's 2 different shapes, and those are the whole heart of the 1, 4, 5 interaction. If you know where 5 is, 6 is right after. By knowing these 2 shapes is a really major key to understanding how the chords relate and how melodies can work for you, okay? So we've got the shape starting on the top string, 1, 4, 5, and then we've got the shape starting on the 5th string, 1, going back, 4, 5, okay? So now we're in the key of D. There's our major scale in D. Now we've done the harmony section before, so now we're doing the boogie pattern section. The boogie pattern section is playing a formula starting on this root note. The formula for the boogie pattern is 1, 3, 5, 6, flat 7. So we play it accordingly. 1, 3, 5, 6, flat 7. Well, you say, well, where'd you get those notes from? Well, the major scale relates numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So with this, I just simply choose the numbers that are necessary for the melody. And those numbers were, the formula was 1, 3, 5, 6, flat 7. Okay? Play them forward and back. And we get the boogie pattern. All right? Now we want to play and clear out the cobwebs, the boogie pattern in the 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. Okay? So we played it in D. G, if you remember, is down to the 3rd fret. So it's a 5th is always on top of the 1. Okay? If I start here, the 1's on. If I start here, the 1, the 5th's on top. Okay? And it's weird because if this is the 1, the 4th's on top. So that's a kind of like a reciprocal type of thing. But when you start on one note, the shapes begin to develop, and you can see, oh, I got a 4th over here, or a 3rd over here, and this is the whole key to recognizing guitar, and the importance of learning it by playing triads and your scales than some random patterns that some guy showed you at a party once, and hope that that's going to be the foundation of your playing. Clear that out of your mind and get used to your major scale, get in tune with your triads, and that will be the whole key of expressing yourself through this instrument and clearing out the cobwebs and getting you ready to actually play this thing. Okay? So we've got the boogie pattern in D, the boogie pattern in G, that's the 4, and the boogie pattern in 5, it's 2 frets higher than 4, back to 1. Now quickly play it the way it should be played in that. Now there's a chord drill that accompanies the sheets and an ending pattern. Okay? Okay, that have the outline of the chord drill, where you play which sequence, if it's the 1 boogie pattern or the 4 boogie pattern, and the exact amount of times you play it in a 16-bar chord drill, okay? Which is a breakdown and a skeleton of what a song is. It's arrangements of chords and patterns being played at certain times, and all combined produces the music that we're listening to, okay? So what we're doing here is getting a look at the kind of the skeleton of what music is, harmony, melody, and combining it. So this episode we looked at the boogie pattern in the key of D, 1, 4, 5, D, G, and A, okay? Now one thing I want to sort of just kind of stretch a little bit is the importance of this number system, because with this number system then, you can apply to and understand why shapes sound the way they do and how they sound that, and then develop a vocabulary. And anytime you want a sound of a rock chord, you know, well, it's a root and a 5th, 1, 5, okay? And that will give me my rock chord sound. Whatever it is. And in fact, I don't like, sometimes I'll put the distortion on and it's kind of cool because it opens it up, but just playing little riffs and keeping the chops up and all that, eventually, you know, all the sounds come together for you, okay? A rock chord is just your first and 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of any major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually, of the major scale in any key, okay? Now you play that, there's my 6th on top of the 5th, so there's various patterns. The 1, 4, 5 in the key of D can be played with rock chords. And those are the same root notes we use when we play the boogie pattern. Okay? So, I hope you enjoyed yourself. The idea of it all is to get the numbers and the sounds to relate, and that nothing is done accidentally, it's by deliberate motion, okay? We've looked at the 1, 4, 5 in the key of D today, and next time we've got A and E to look at, and we can then spend some time on combining the two and exploring a little better on how all this works and connects, okay? Keep up with the finger exercises and the practice, and we'll see you next time on Mastering the Guitar.